Welcome to Building Your Best Profile. My name is Xander Karsten. I'm the Director of Onboarding and Projects here at LegalServer. So today we're going to really focus on your case profile in LegalServer and building the best case profile possible. So just to orient ourselves, there are three components of any record in LegalServer. There's a way to create a record through our create process. In cases, that's called an intake. In other kinds of records, like a time slip or an outreach or a grant, is called a create process. There's a way to edit a record in LegalServer, and that's through auxiliary processes. And then there are ways to view information, view a record, and those are called profiles. Today, we're going to focus on the case profile. The case is the only module where you can have different profile views for the same record. So you could have a different profile for your pro bono attorneys or for your contractors or for different user roles. You could have a different profile based on an individual user. So maybe you have an executive director who wants a different view of a case. You could also have a different profile for the type of case based on the legal problem code. So housing versus family. If you wanted a different profile, you could do that. Some of the keys to good profiles is very simple and straightforward, both in the layout and in the actions menu. Also, looking at the language, the placement of information, that sort of user flow that matches the expectation of the user. Really highlighting just the information a user needs to see. And then again, as mentioned earlier, customized views so that the user sees only the information that they need to see or that they should see, and that the information is specific to that case type. Again, based on legal problem code, etc. So how do we get from here to there? The first thing that I always recommend is to identify universal information. What is it that everyone can see or do in the case profile? So this may be a specific set of actions that everyone can see, being able to add time or add a case note, being able to see certain information, being able to edit certain information, really thinking through what everyone can do and can see, regardless of the case type, maybe even regardless of the type of user, and really making sure that information is all in one place. Where is that one place? That's going to be your universal profile. It says create here. It's really update. The profile that we're talking about is the top level profile in a case. So what does this profile look like? Looks much like something like this. If I look up at the top, it says my main profile. And it's got some information. In this situation, in your profile, is going to look different, but it's got some information in my flow block at the top. And I've got one tab block. This is my universal tab block. This is going to show up on every profile that I have that just has the information here that everyone should see. So everyone should see the upcoming events or the incomplete tasks on this case. Everyone should see people and organizations. Maybe everyone should see case notes, etc., etc. Under the actions menu too, I've got that information that everyone should be able to have access to. On the back end, if I go to admin and I edit my profile, we'll see up at the top the permissions, who has access to this profile, and then the various enabled elements, right? So my flow block, that's that header that everyone can see, cases and client alerts, and that tab block, that initial tab block for contact information, contacts, calendar, etc. And then down on my side action element, we have this menu boxes. This pulls in those universal menu boxes. So that's my kind of main profile, my top level profile. Next, you're going to want to identify specific information. This is information that, again, maybe it's specific to a pro bono attorney or a contractor, right? Information that either only they should see, or maybe information that your main user should see, but they should not see. And being able to limit that information to only some users or some cases. Again, perhaps it's a housing case or a foreclosure case, and they should have foreclosure information, but not any information about family law. There are a bunch of different ways that you can do this. We're going to focus right now on creating a new profile-specific tab blocks with just that information. So in order to do that, I'm going to come to my admin tab, and I'm going to type in processes, forms, and profiles. And I'm on my module for case matters and my tab block. Now, I happen to already have a housing information specific tab block. I'm going to use that to create a new tab block. You just go to actions, and if I type in new tab block, I get that option here. But I'm just going to use my housing information. If I've got something that is close, but not quite exactly what I want, I can always copy it and then make changes. But in this case, I'm just going to edit. And here, I just have some very basic information. It's just a tab start with housing information, and then some information on the monthly rent or mortgage. I could have much more information, obviously. I could have my own list views. I could have my own whatever other information that I want. But for right now, we're just going to leave that here. I do also have an option to leave a description or maybe some configuration notes for my future self so that I can really tell future me what's going on here. Once I create my profile-specific tab block, then I'm going to build a profile view that has its own elements, that has maybe its own menu boxes, and we'll see what that looks like right now. I'm going to come out of my tab block, and I'm going to come to my profiles. Now, again, I have a housing profile. What if I were creating a new profile view, and the important word here is view, I would just come to my actions, and I would choose new profile view. The important thing to know is when I create a new profile view, I'm going to pick a main profile. If, as my parent profile, if you are not picking a parent profile, stop. It means that you're creating a parent profile and you only want one parent profile. So make sure you're always selecting a parent profile. That's one of those sort of checklist sort of things, always using a parent profile. Otherwise, you're creating a top-level profile, and it's just going to confuse things. For me, for right now, again, I've got my housing profile, and so I'm just going to come in and edit that. And again, what I have are you'll see a lot of the same elements. I've got my permissions. I have things that are enabled. I have a flow block that looks very similar to the flow block that I had on my main profile, but I could make changes to that. That could be specific to just this profile view. I do have my contact information, contacts, and calendar. Again, that's my universal tab block. That's my tab block that's going to be on every single profile. If I make a change to that tab block, it's going to show up on all of my profiles. And that's one way to really decrease the amount of work that you need to do is to have one tab block that has all your universal information. Similarly, down here under side action elements, I have my menu box sidebar. And if I click on edit here, this is going to have all of the things on my actions menu that should be available everywhere on all cases, regardless of what legal problem code they're set to, regardless of who is viewing them based on the user role, regardless of the profile that is assigned to that case. These are the universal menu options. In my profile here for housing, I have a custom link box that's only going to show up for my housing cases. And in this case, it has a trust and expense history in case I'm taking money in to hold for mortgage payments or for rent, just as an example. So this gives me, again, that custom profile view that I'm looking for just my housing cases. Next, I'm going to link that view to a user or to a user role, to a user, or to a legal problem code so that the system knows which records or which users to display my profile view for. So in order to do that, there are a couple of places that I can go. One is I can go to my user roles. So here, I'm going to go to edit my user roles or permissions. And I'm going to just use admin as an example, but this could be used anywhere. So if I set for my main profile, and this means my main case profile, I can set housing profile as the default for everyone who is using this user role. So this is especially helpful if you have a contractor specific profile, or if you have a pro bono restricted access profile, or if you have supervising attorneys and maybe you have 10 or 15 supervising attorneys and you want all of them to have the same case profile. So this is really helpful to use for a group of users. The other place that you can assign a specific profile to a specific user is if I come down to my preferences, and this also allows you to set under this main profile a specific case profile just for this user. So this is especially helpful, again, maybe you have an executive director who gets a special case profile that gives them very high level information about the case, but maybe doesn't go into case notes, maybe doesn't go into whatever else. So this can be really helpful for those one-off, a single user. The last place that you can change the default profile is going to be on the legal problem code. And to get there, I'm going to go to admin and we're going to go to lookups. And we're going to go to our legal problem code. And you'll see here, amongst all the other things that you can do, there's also a way to default our main profile. So if I come down to, let's see, in my 60s, 63 for private landlord tenant, you'll see this legal problem code is defaulted to the housing profile. This means that all cases with a 63 problem code are going to show the housing profile as their default profile. And to see how that works, I'm going to come back to my home page and come back to Jimmy page, which is a different case. This one has that legal problem code, and you'll see my housing information shows up here. And it's just a different profile under my actions. I have that housing option that we set up just for my housing cases. And so that is there. Now, there are a lot of other ways that you can customize your profiles. If all it was to show monthly rent or mortgage on a housing case, I may not use a whole new profile. In that situation, I may use our case questions block that will show information based on the legal problem code that you could put under its own tab in the profile and mark as read-only, so that, that information is really different based on legal problem code to legal problem code. If it's just one tab worth of information, you may want to use case questions, branch logic, maybe guided navigation. So there are all these other tools that sort of show information conditionally based on your needs that you could use on profiles as well as on create forms and auxiliary forms. Where a new profile is especially helpful is when it's based on the user role or the specific user, and or where you are trying to provide new options in the actions menu or restricting people from accessing or being able to add certain kinds of records. So I tend to look at if it's based on user role or a specific user. Oftentimes I need a special profile, or if I want to impact the actions menu and only provide certain actions based on the user role, legal problem code, specific user. But by having this process, by looking at what the universal information is, what is the specific information, building that out, and really having targeted information, it can really help keep your profile clean, keep your profile easy to use and easy to see and easy to locate the information that your admins are really looking for. Thank you very much for your time today. You can reach out to me at any time at xkarsten@legalserver.org or support.legalserver.org.